in the web of his own making is how I remember those final days. He was arrogant, obnoxious, and condescending. The assignment was to read a play by Roswitha, a woman and a nun writing in the 10th century from Saxony. I, the granddaughter of Irish Catholic immigrants, was very familiar with nuns. First of all, there are the cloistered nuns. They're the ones who dedicate their lives to prayer. Then there are the active nuns. They are the shakers and the makers of the communities of their day. They dedicate their lives to the medical, the educational, and the social well-being of the communities in which they serve. Together, they often live in one convent with two different dedications of their lives to God. Roswitha was a Benedictine, if you know anything about them.
My father can beat your father at dominoes. Everybody, amen.
I was on a mission. I needed to find out all I could about this woman named Roswitha. First, I read the assigned play. The butt of the joke was a pagan. So I read the second play. The second play seemed to be very much like the first play, except the butt of the joke was a Christian. And I thought that was very funny. So I read the third play, the fourth play, the fifth play, the sixth play. But that still was not enough for me. I read all of Roswitha's legends. I read all of Roswitha's histories. I read everything I could find that she had written. And still, that was not enough for me. I stopped attending my theater classes, and I found my way to the Divinity School library. There, I learned all sorts of things. The convent was located in the hotbed of the social, cultural, and economic center of its day. It was along the byways and highways of its time and period. There were two bishops. One bishop supported everything that the nuns did. The second bishop was banned from the convent grounds. Oh, such drama! The things that plays are made from. Not only was the bishop banned, but the convent wasn't even founded by the hierarchy, the male hierarchy. The nuns were in a convent that was founded by a duke and his wife. So the nuns were freed women, not under the thumb and rule of the male hierarchy. Then, oh my gosh, I found a ground plan to the convent place, or any place she studied. The courtyard was in the front, and it was surrounded by the cubicles in which the nuns slept. A curtain could be drawn back, revealing a small scene. Anything was possible. Then I went to class. Our professor started pacing back and forth, as he often did. Today we're going to discuss the little nun Roswitha. None of this, none of that, ha, ha, ha. She's not a real playwright, not one who wrote to be produced, only to be read. Really, I thought to myself, then why write if not to be read, if not to be heard? Besides, the translation of Roswitha's name means the strong voice, one meant to be heard. What did you think of her little plays? Said the professor quite belittlingly. Oh, and that ridiculous scene with the pots and pans. More laughter, not from me. I think she was writing from a satirical point of view, I volunteered. What would give you such a ridiculous idea? I was an older student. All I was asking was a little discussion. I didn't insist I was right. I didn't say he was wrong. Let's just talk about possibilities. Well, if you compare the second play with the first play, you read the second play. Well, actually, I read all 6 of them. And if you compare, you read all of her plays. Yes, and if you know about, he was very frustrated because I was interrupting his plan, his teaching plan. And I insisted once again, which is why I believe Roswitha was writing from a satirical point of view. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Oh, I got his goat, and he started pacing and pacing and pacing and pacing and getting very angry. To which I looked at him with all of his impossibles, and I said, why, Michael, why? Oh, he stopped dead in his tracks. He did not appreciate being demoted from doctor. I did not appreciate his treatment of women. Besides, he had demoted himself by his own behavior. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Why, Michael, why, I asked. Because. Why, Michael, why? Because. And he's pacing and pacing and pacing, trying to think of a good answer. And then he stops dead in his tracks. He looks me straight in the eye and he says, because she was a woman. The proverbial pin hit the floor. There was silence in the classroom. I waited a moment, and then I looked him back straight in the eye, and I said, and women have no wits with the precise amount of sarcasm. Thank you. For many, that's the ending of the story. And there's an epilogue. Is that the next part? I moved to Minnesota, and my first job was at the Old Guthrie. And if any of you remember the Old Guthrie, behind the theater where the scene shop was the crossover from stage left to stage right for the actors to make their magical cross without being seen. And I was working in the scene shop, and we were not allowed to use power tools because they would interfere with the production. So I had just moved to Minnesota, and nobody knew me, and I didn't know anybody. And in the middle of production, 2 actors come sprinting across the scene shop, and one of them stops dead in his tracks, and he says, "You're that woman." I have been been called that woman throughout my life, but I had no idea why it was this time. And all the stagehands said, "Who is that?" I said, "He was in full costume. How am I supposed to know?" And they left, they took their entrance, we listened to more of the play as we did painting or anything without electrical tools. And then then this Shakespearean actor and his buddy come crossing through the scene shop to make their crossover, and he stops dead in his tracks, and he points to me and he says, "I'll never forget you." Well, the stagehands all started to laugh and said, "Well, you've made a great impression on him. Why don't you remember who he is?" And again I said, "Because he's in costume. I have no idea who he is." Well, at the end of the show, these two men came backstage, still in costume, and the one who kept pointing me said, "Oh, I have to thank you. You have single-handedly made the most memorable part of my professional development." I was just a stagehand. This was a Guthrie actor. Why would such a person be saying that to me? And then the two men looked at each other, burst out laughing, and then the man who pointed to me said, "Roswitha!" And his friend said, "The playwright," who was writing from a satirical point of view. And then the first one said, "And Michael Zelenak, who demoted himself from doctor."